of Alpha Line Assisted Stretch Studio here in San Diego. So it was really hard for us to be up. It's pretty dark still. But we specialize in one-on-one assisted stretching that's tailored towards each individual that comes through our doors. So we like to specialize, work on alignment for each and every individual, but also create this body awareness that allows everybody to be their own self-advocate. So that's kind of what we want to give as an arsenal for you guys today as we work on alignment. But if you don't have anything else, we can get started.
Yeah, we also really focus into breath work and just the way that works with our movement. So we are going to start with some box breathing to just kind of like tap into the body. And then we will be utilizing the breath throughout all of our movements. So we'll kind of cue breath as we're going into some of these stretches.
So you can start in kneeling position or seating. And we are going to go through some box breathing like Desiree said. So if you want to start us the wasp.
So box breathing, just to explain it very quickly, is I want you to think of a physical box. We are going to take the inhale in for 4. We are going to hold it at the top for 4. We are going to release the breath for 4. And we're going to hold breath, no breath in the belly for 4. And we'll start that again. And we're going to go for about 5 rounds of that.
It's just a good way to start with a clear mind for our practice. So if you guys want to close your eyes, absolutely go for it. And we'll start counting you guys down. So inhale here for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's breath number 2. Start breathing in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do 2 more breaths here. So inhaling on 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Last one. Let's try to hold it just a bit longer. Holding of 1. Breathing in 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to continue that sort of breath, at least an intentional breath that's a slower pace, not getting into shallow breathing today. We are trying to wake ourselves up and start our day right. So continue with your breath of intentionality as it's going to help you get into deeper stretching. Next up, we're going to be getting into our hands and knees. We'll start with our left arm right behind our neck, opening up our chest towards the left side, pushing out of your right scapula, being really intentional with this movement, opening up your chest and threading the needle underneath you. When we're threading the needle, I want you guys to really focus on pushing into that left knee, push into that left hip, and start to move your hips towards the left. While you're doing this, imagine pushing your shoulder into the ground. This should give you a nice upper back release. And since it's the morning, we're not holding anything too long. So here's your next opening. If you want to, you can open up your arm like Desiree, maybe roll around your wrist if you're going to be at a computer most of the day or on your phones. And we'll go straight back underneath. We're going to do around 3 of these on each side. Another addition is you can straighten out that right arm right now and kind of add to that stretch and getting into that right side as well. Focus on those deep breaths. It'll get you deeper into the stretch. And if you had your right arm out, bring it underneath your shoulder. Last one, opening up your left arm to the sky, maybe having it just behind your neck if that feels better. And bringing your elbow down to the ground and getting into that thread the needle. Imagine again pushing that hip towards the left, staying really grounded in your left leg. Imagine your left shoulder also planted into the ground. And we'll open up other side. Desiree will lead.
Now that left hand is planted. Again, we can go either right hand behind the neck, opening up that way, or extending that arm straight out. Focusing on that alignment of the shoulders here, opening up the chest. Again, now threading that needle, right arm going across the chest, across the body. As head rests, again, with that, now that we're focusing on this right side, that right knee is going to push into the floor. Right hip is going to push out. Feeling that stretch behind the shoulder blade here. Pushing up again. Opening up that chest. Working through this thoracic rotation here. Again, wiggling the wrist around, wiggling the fingers. Really sets us up for reminding our spine that it's supposed to be fluid, moving through. It's supposed to have this type of movement. We don't get enough of this rotation throughout our day. So really being intentional with the movement here. Last one here. Taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. As we come across, releasing that breath. Holding it for a second longer. Taking some of those variations that we took on the other side. Left hand can come out. Pushing through that right knee, right hip. Listen to your body here. Listen to what it's telling you. Let's come back to neutral.
We're going to neutralize the spine a bit by doing some cat and cows. With this cat and cow, though, I want you guys to be really intentional with what you do feel. If it feels tight on your stomach, does it feel pinchy on your back? Take notes and add it to your arsenal of your body. What we're going to do is flick your tailbone up to the sky, bring your neck towards the earth, dropping in your stomach, pushing in your chest through those shoulders, and dropping through. Now we're going to drop your neck, drop your chest into bringing it all the way up, tucking your tailbone under, swaying side to side, kind of freestyle it a little bit. Also making sure that your fingers are nice and wide. We'll start dropping your stomach again. We'll just do one more of these to kind of neutralize everything, get your body back into alignment. Maybe shaking out your head from your night's sleep. And we are going to start into our hips. So we're going to get into a really deep squat. This can look different for everybody. If you want to start, we can start standing and getting into a squat like this. The main focus that we want is pushing your knees away. So as you sort of melt into this, letting those knees go out, I like to put my hands in prayer because I also like to stretch out my fingers. So I put all of my fingertips together and I glue them together as well as pushing my hips out. So I can kind of stretch out my hands since I work with my hands every day as well as Desiree.
Notice what your hips are feeling like. If it takes a second to get into this pose, be mindful of why. Is it coming from the hips? Is it coming from the low back? Using bolsters underneath the butt to just sit on is absolutely okay. You're still getting the same kind of stretch. The intentionality here is really, really into those hips. So noticing what that feels like. If it feels like too much to push the elbows in, maybe resting them on top.
Another thing, if you don't have bolsters, you could bring a blanket or some extra pillows underneath your glutes. Imagine this deep breath kind of fueling into the muscles that feel pretty crazy right now. About halfway there, a little bit further. Deep breaths.
Focusing on those calming breaths kind of lets the body know there's no need to go into fight or flight. You just get to breathe through this one. We're going to teach you guys how to get a little bit more comfortable being uncomfortable, because that is what stretching is. That's a huge part of what stretching is trying to learn to understand what your body needs as it gives you some of these cues back when you are sitting into these stretches.
As we sort of get out of this, you can kind of grab the ground, grab your feet, your ankles, and start to straighten out those legs. Walking out those legs a little bit. We are going to be getting into a little bit more of inner thigh work as well as our QL. So we'll get back into a sitting position. We'll always start with the left side for you guys. So if you ever just get lost, make sure you're starting on the left when we're beginning. We'll have our left leg out, our right leg in onto our right foot and our left inner thigh. What we want to make sure is everybody's tailbones, as well as sitting bones, are really grounded into the earth. So kind of just swaying side to side before we get into this big stretch. We're going to be reaching with our left arm and bringing that right arm to the sky. I kind of like to imagine like I'm stringing the guitar. So I like to bring my arms around. This is a little bit more energizing if you're up for it. And you can kind of reverse the circles if you want. See what feels best to you this morning, being intentional with what your body needs. You can also get into those wrists. I also like to imagine, we do this stretch with assisted stretching a lot. We always want your chest to start to make its way towards the sky. So really opening up the front side of your body. That'll allow you to stretch even deeper into the back side. Got about 15 seconds here. Really start reaching that right hand over towards your left foot. Imagining opening up your chest a little bit more towards the sky, but also focusing on those deep breaths. We're going to start to merge this into a hamstring stretch. So you can bring your hips to face that left foot that is already straight out from you. We're going to do a little bit more of an active stretch since this is the morning. I want you guys to stay pretty active in your upper body while staying really nice and relaxed in your lower body. So we're going to start to melt your chest towards the sky, towards your left foot. However, your chest is staying up. We're not folding over and getting really relaxed in this. We're going to start with activeness so that those muscles know to be awake, and then we'll get into a little bit of melting right after. So I like to kind of play around with my left foot since we're on the left side, pointing and flexing my toes, maybe going side to side. Just kind of see, like, are your calves tight? Do you feel it more in your hamstrings? Is it even sometimes maybe your glute or your lower back? If you can kind of hold high up towards your shin or holding down on your foot. Maybe even giving yourself a foot massage if you're going to be on your feet all day today. You have just a couple more seconds here on the left side. So you can drop that chest down, tuck your head, let it be loose here for the last couple of seconds. Still playing around with the way that your left leg is laying. Another really good pressure point I like to go into on my feet, that's a really good blood deposit, is between your big toe and your second toe into that inner webbing. It's a good one just to massage into daily, promoting blood flow into your feet. And we'll slowly start to walk our way up into that seated position, and Desiree will lead us for the other side.
Wonderful. So now we are going to be tucking in that left foot closer to the body. Right leg will be out straight. So now coming into this left side and paying attention really to how they feel different. Oftentimes we cross one leg over the other. Oftentimes when we side sleep, we kind of hike one leg up. So no two sides are going to feel the same. So really taking note of the body, how we're feeling. That right hand is now going to come closer to the leg. We can either go hand at foot or elbow at inner thigh, whichever feels a little bit more comfortable for you. That left hand now is going to come around in a circle. I actually really love when Izzy does the guitar drumming because it allows you to, again, be active through that other arm, bringing blood flow to the upper body while tapping into how that low back is feeling. We're working that QL here. So QL stands for quadratus lumborum, really fancy schmancy word that talks about just some of our back stabilizers, big muscles through our back. I'm sure as you kind of reach that arm up and across, now you're really elongating that whole portion of the body. So notice how that muscle attaches to that back hip. Notice what that feels like for you. If you haven't yet, let's flip that circle direction. And again, the left arm or the right arm that's planted, I want you to think about pushing up and through that shoulder as you're opening the chest. Notice what that correct alignment feels like in the back. Is it painful? Is it pinchy? Where do we feel it? Last little one here. Opening up through that chest, trying to plant that left hip down on the ground too as you come around. As we make our way to a hold in that QL. I'm gonna take a nice deep breath. I have to set myself up for that one. So again, I'm pressing that right arm into the ground, into my right inner thigh, and I'm just holding my left arm up, either open arm, arm behind the head, just trying to focus into that alignment. Let's tap back into that breath here. Inhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4. Small hold for 1. Big exhale here for 4, 3, 2, 1. Notice what that exhale feels like. Were you able to relax anywhere in your body? Let's bring it up from there. Now moving into hamstring on that right side. So again, kind of just squaring off that body a little bit more. I want you to think about coming really tall out of the spine. We're going to shift so that we're a little bit more squared off to that right leg, and we're going to fold. Same on this side. We're going to start with that active fold of moving the ankle around, moving the foot around. When you're moving through that ankle, are you feeling any pulls through the hamstring? Listen to your body here. Are you feeling any pinchiness through that right hip as you fold in? Again, tapping back into that breath. Take a nice deep breath. Kind of puff out that chest. Exhale, small fold in. See if we can melt a little bit closer. Again, nice deep breath in. Exhale, try to melt. We are holding on to that foot. We are keeping hands at the side, whatever is most comfortable here. When we are holding that foot, I don't want you to think about pulling your chest closer. I like the idea of just massaging through that foot, just kind of paying attention to the lower extremity, the furthest from our bodies, furthest from our brains. The last few seconds here. If we can melt, let's melt through this one. If we're just breathing and trying to get through it, that's okay too. Hamstrings on, I would say 99% of our clients are the tightest. It is the muscle that oftentimes pulls at that low back. So when we hear of people complaining of low back issues, this is the first place we look. Let's bring it up nice and slow. So understanding that, one, everything is connected. So especially when we're seated all day for work, hip flexors are in that short position, hamstrings are in that short position. So the muscles that they end up pulling at is that low back. So today we are focusing on alignment, but we are also focusing on alleviating the bigger muscles, alleviating some of that low back pain that we hear people complaining about. So from here, we're actually gonna get into cow phase. So it's gonna begin with us just seated on our butts. We can go, start left leg over. No. We're gonna start left leg over right. The other leg is gonna fold in as well. So my left leg is on top, my right leg's on bottom. The goal here is to align the knees to be directly in front of you. So if you have a mirror and you can kind of see where they're at. If not, we just kind of play around with it for a second. I'm sure through this now you can start to feel a little bit of that left glute. It's very easy to want to hold into this stretch because things are feeling really tight through that low back, through those glutes. So really focusing on just relaxing through here, taking some of those deep breaths. Again, seated up nice and tall, really trying to elongate through that spine. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose, filling up the belly. Good. Exhale, we're gonna fold it in just slightly, just enough to where we feel it in preferably that left side glute. Every once in a while, we'll start to feel it in that right side if that right side's also tight.
I definitely feel it in both today, so that's fine.
And so when we're kind of folding over here, we're really making sure to not allow that chest to fall in and fold. We want to keep that chest nice and long, hinging slightly at the hips. Notice what that feels like when you hinge at the hips.
Another way to keep your chest really tall is to be on top of those fingertips rather than letting the padding of your hands be flat onto the ground. So staying high on those fingertips, keep it nice and active. I also like to be very attentive of where my feet are. I like to have them both kind of out at the same level. So you want them to kind of be maybe like at a 45-degree angle out from your knees. Keeping those knees nice and relaxed over each other. We only have a couple of more seconds before we get into this other side. Wiggle your toes if they start to feel a little crazy, a little tingly. And we'll start to roll up. We can bring both legs in front of us. We always like to realign our bodies after all these fun stretches. So shake it out, get weird with it, and we'll start to get your left leg to be on the bottom with your right knee right on top. So again, kind of just getting situated, making sure those legs are at a nice little angle outside of your knees, making sure that they at least replicate each other in the sense of where they're at. And we'll start with that active fold over once you feel nice and grounded and ready. Hopefully you also already feel it a little bit more on that right side. If not, stay sitting tall until you do start to feel that right side at least relax a little bit more before you get into that active fold over. So if you want, you can start just walking your fingers out a couple inches from your knees so you're staying pretty close to your body. And you'll progressively, as you start to deepen your breath, progressively getting a little bit deeper into it. If it ever feels pinchy or if it doesn't feel super great, you can start to separate your knees a little bit further away from on top of each other to kind of get into this folded position. It's still going to getting into your outer hips, but you'll more so have your ankles on top of your knees rather than your knees on top of each other. So that's another good modification. So we're still actively folding over here, maybe walking your fingers a little bit further. Getting into that breath work again. We'll do one more box breath here. So we'll start with that big inhale. We'll breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. On this exhale, try to release everything. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, and back to regular breathing. We'll start to walk our fingers back into neutral. And we're going to get into a good quad stretch here. So if you need to realign your hips, I like to get into that nice butterfly pose, maybe even getting into some mobility into your hips, going side to side by having your heels planted on the ground, letting your knees drop to each side. Maybe they drop together, maybe they drop one at a time. Use just as a visual if it looks confusing or sounds confusing. Good. And we'll start to get into our hands and knees. So that's where we're going next. We'll start again on that left side. So we'll bring that right foot in front of us, almost in that like half lunge position. I like to grab with my right hand, but you can grab with your left hand if that feels better. I always find that opening up with my right side can get into my psoas a little bit deeper, which is that higher up muscle from your hip flexor. So making sure that your right ankle is at a 90-degree angle from your knee. I'm going to be grabbing with my right hand, and I'm going to grab my left hand down onto the ground. So if this is too much, just start with having your hands right here and getting into that hip flexor. But if you feel ready for that advancement, bringing that hand behind and grabbing your foot that's behind you as well. We're going to do a little bit of almost PNF here, which is proprioceptive neurological facilitation. So basically meaning we are pushing into our muscle and contracting it while we're in a stretch, which allows us to release everything a little bit more when we release. So what this is going to look like is we're going to push our foot, our left foot specifically, into whatever hand you're holding it with. You're pushing for 3, 2, 1, and then relax everything. So imagining that your left quad is relaxing. Hopefully you're feeling it into your left hip flexor, maybe even your left psoas. We're going to do just one more push. Hopefully you felt that difference once you relaxed. You can also imagine that right knee kind of opening up a little bit so you get into that right hips a little bit more. Really dropping into those hips. Here's push number 2. Push that left foot into your right hand or your left hand, pushing for 3, 2, 1, and release that foot here. Maybe it's getting closer to your glute. Maybe it stays exactly where it's at, but you feel a little bit of difference. Just about 10 more seconds here. Melting into those hips. Maybe opening up that torso towards the right side so that you can open up into that twist. Maybe even looking towards the back side of the room. And you'll start to drop that left leg down. If this feels crazy on your knees, hopefully you guys all have a stacked mat and you can also fold it up a little bit. So I'm gonna do that for this next one. Desiree will lead off our next side.
I'm gonna go a little bit slower through this side just because I know what this right hip is feeling like and I know what this other left hip is feeling like. So now with this left leg in front, same as you said, I want you to choose your adventure here and choosing which side feels better for you in terms of which leg which hand you're grabbing your opposite leg with. So I'm going to start, I'll have Izzy start the more advanced version. So she's gonna do the same thing that she did on the other side. On this side, I'm going to rest same left arm on that left knee, and I'm going to grab just onto my right foot. So here too, kind of paying attention to both sides of the hips, what they feel like if one side feels a little bit stickier. As you're pulling that left leg, we're trying to be intentional with stretching through this quad, but this little hip flexor right on top is going to get a little bit of that stretch as well. So just noticing what that feels like. Leaning into that first left hip. Sometimes gliding through these stretches will help increase some of that blood flow into some of these like heavier joint areas that we feel this stickiness through. So very small movements through there are so fine. I'm going to move on now to my right arm being planted on the ground. I'm going to wiggle my left foot out just a little bit to provide a little bit more space for my body. My left hand is now grabbing on to my right foot. And we're going to begin a little bit of those PNFs again. So on your inhale, you're pressing the top of your foot into your hand. Very small press, just enough to engage that quad muscle. From there, relaxing, breathing into it. Maybe pulling that right leg a little bit closer. Good, relaxing back to neutral. And again, inhale, press top of that foot, right hand. Good, exhale, release, melt. Maybe pull that leg in a little closer for a stretch, deeper stretch. Good. Rock in and out of this one for a few more seconds here. Good, let's release that one. Again, wanting to neutralize everything. So maybe let's bring it back to onto all fours. Give a little sway in the hips. Notice what those hips are feeling like. Rock forward, back, and we are going to make our way onto our backs. We are going to be ending today with diaphragmatic breathing. So this is a really, really deep type of belly breath. That diaphragm is a muscle that we only get to work when we are breathing and intentionally breathing at that. So we are going to start on our backs. I'll kind of guide us through this, talking onto it. So if you're on your back, I'll kind of talk you through it. So as we begin on our backs, we're actually going to bring the legs to a bend so that feet are flat on the ground. Good. As we do that, that brings us into a pelvic tilt, a neutral pelvic tilt. That is the only time that our spine should be nice and straight and flat and relaxed. So with those legs bent, feet flat, hips at neutral, we're going to begin either with hands on sides of rib cage or one hand at rib cage and one hand at low belly. I want you guys to feel your hands move either in, out and in closer together or feeling that belly rise, nothing really moving through the chest. So again, intentional breathing here. I want you to close your eyes, tap into your body a little bit more. We're going to take that inhale into just the belly, not letting any movement come from the chest here. Good. Pushing out the belly all the way to the low, low, low belly. Good. Taking in more air than you think you can. Holding it at the top for a few seconds. Aiming for 2. As we release, we're releasing through a little coffee straw. Really pushing out all the air from the belly. Good. Feeling that rib cage close in a little bit more. Good, all the air, more than you think you got. Again, inhaling now through the nose. Pushing out the belly, letting the rib cage open from right to left. Holding it. Good, big release out the mouth, out a little coffee straw. Belly's gonna drop first, rib cage is gonna follow. We have one more breath here. Inhaling, expanding the rib cage right to left. Pushing out the belly. Holding. Big exhale, belly drops. Rib cage follows. When we say breath is powerful, this taps into that parasympathetic system. That's the system that lets our body know whether we need to go into fight or flight. So those calming breaths tell your body you're safe, you're present. I hope some of that extra oxygen to the head, to the heart, to the body has allowed us to feel a little bit more energized this morning. Woke us up, got some of the joint lubrication going.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Please follow us on our socials where our name is Alpha Align. Again, my name is Izzy.
I'm Desiree.
And we would love to see you guys in the studio or at least practicing some of our stretching. So share what you guys have seen from today. We really appreciate everybody showing up and showing some support. And we hope that